Just to start off, this isn't going to be a positive video on Fairy Gone, so if you don't like that, then you may not want to watch this video because I don't have many great things to say about this anime. So let's just get right into it. Fairy Gone is one of these anime everyone seemed to be talking about, so I watched it and I just wasn't impressed. But there is something this anime may be doing that will be its saving grace. This is Fairy Tail. God, Fairy Gone, that's right, this is Fairy Gone. During a massive civil war, the soldiers that fought were integrated with magical beings known as fairies, or primordial fairies. This gave them the ability to basically control extensions of themselves in battle. Wait, hold on a moment, that's just stands from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I actually can't believe they copied stands from that show. And well, that does make sense when you have the director of Stardust Crusaders helming this project. Anyways, the story follows Marlia Knoll and Free Underbar after this massive war which separated Marlia from her friend Veronica, who is a criminal on the run. Turns out that Free Underbar is looking to capture Veronica, so Marlia joins Free to capture her. And I originally didn't even plan to watch this show, but I decided to cover it with Rising Sun Reviews over on his channel with the Fairy Gun podcast. And I feel like I've seen enough of this to give you my first impressions of this show. And the first impressions I got from this was that it is an absolute mess all the way from the animation to even basic world building. And let's start with the latter here with some writing. It's a convoluted mess of an anime, this is. It explains things at a mile a minute, or just never explains things, foregoing meaningful world building that's integral and character growth for instead to just shoe in some action and drama, which ultimately have no real meaning because those other things I talked about have no build-up. So those don't have no meaning. Nothing has meaning here. Sure, we know Marlia and Veronica were separated and were friends, but why should I care about that? What does Marlia mean to Veronica and vice versa? What are my assurances as a viewer that any of this will ever be explained when the first 2 episodes of the show focuses more on action with low quality CGI and the terribly explained setting that this world takes place in? I was bored to death for a majority of these first 3 episodes because there is absolutely nothing to bite your teeth on. An example of this is Marlia's character, who just so happens to be where Free is, where it just so happens that Veronica is also there, who just so happens to be wanting to steal the Black Fairy Tome, which we just so happen to have no explanation for until episode 3. Why is the tome so important? What does it do? I don't know. This show doesn't explain for 2 whole episodes as to why it's so damn important. Not only that, but how am I supposed to believe these 3 people would just so happen to be in the same place at the same time? I need meaningful and real explanations to these things, or else I just feel it's happening for arbitrary reasons, which this show right now is very good at doing. Another example of how convoluted this show gets. I don't even know any of the characters' motivations besides Marlia, and even for Marlia, I'm completely lost outside of one reason, which is to get to Veronica. And what is Free's motivation for letting Marlia on the team anyways? Because she's her friend? That's a pretty bad reason, because Marlia has a reason to sympathize with Veronica and join Marlia's side down the road. What does Free get out of this besides a liability? And not only that, but she fused with a fairy, which makes her more of a potential threat. And speaking of when she fused with that fairy, the way Marlia fused with it to get her powers was so random. When the fairy is freed from its cage, she reaches up to grab it. And why? And not only that, but why are these extremely powerful fairies just kept in easy to reach places, and as well in these easy to destroy cages? Should we keep these fairies away from people so that they don't get these extremely powerful stands, which is what they are, let's be honest here, to potentially cause havoc and chaos? I'm not asking too many questions here. I'm not nitpicking. These are questions I asked as soon as the events took place. This show is honestly just a bunch of things happening with no rhyme or no reason to them. It's just stuff going on, noise, distortion. But surprisingly, with all of this awful writing, I want to talk about something positive, something that is good, that is going for this show. And this actually, in some way, maybe it's saving grace. The anime's art direction is superb. For the most part. I love these kinds of shows that are set in an older setting but have like magic and monsters in them. I think it's a great untapped setting that all it really needs is that right person to come by and really make something great out of it. This show, for how bad bad it is, does this one thing really, really well with some asterisks in a very compelling fashion. The character designs, for one, fit the look completely of this world, and while they are a little basic, it's not something that I think is a real issue. The world itself and the backgrounds are awesome though. This anime is filled with lush greens that really capture the eye and bring something different and unique. Whether or not they're able to balance this out and not make this anime just a brown mess in the future is another question. But for now, the show is doing a real good job at bringing out the looks for this anime. Truly incredible in some regards as well, with the immense detail like foliage and even things like vines overtaking older destroyed buildings. That being said, there are some asterisks here, and we're going to talk about those. The designs for vehicles and the stands in this anime are terrible, and it makes me wonder if they even knew how dumb they look. Let's take, for example, the spider vehicles. Now, I don't know about you guys, but logistically speaking, the wheel is almost always a better choice than these 6 legs. And at high speed, these things are animated ridiculously to the point where I'm not even sure if they even checked it over to see if this thing looked hilarious or not. Why not just use damn wheels? Why does it have to be these awful looking legs? And speaking of awful, these stands, which is what they are, they're stands. I'm sorry, their stands look terrible. I don't even want to talk about them anymore. You can even see on the screen for yourself. That's bad. That ain't good. And there are other things that I really hate about this show as well, like the constant rock music playing during fight scenes. This in itself isn't a bad thing, but the music doesn't fit, and it's super tacky and annoying, and that's why I hate it, because it doesn't work. And I think that's it. This show is just not good, and I just wouldn't recommend this to anyone seriously or even ironically. It's painfully boring at the best of times, and at the worst, it's a slog to get through even one episode. Adding on to that, the writing for this anime is all based off circumstances and seems to be banking on the viewer not paying too much attention. So, if you like this show, I'm sorry. And no, there is nothing at all with liking this show or disagreeing with me even. But the anime, oh, it is not good and is absolutely a waste of talent. It turned out to be yet another anime that just doesn't make the cut. So with that being said, if you haven't already, if you're new to the channel, click on some of these videos, subscribe, and ring the bell. If you have $1, you can support me on Patreon and get access to a whole bunch of things like my OV Awful series where I'm covering JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and the last episode where I covered Hunter x Hunter. So if you're interested in that, please give that a look. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.